Welcome to the Spoonful Show. I'm Rachel, and this is a space for real conversations about chronic illness, hope, and learning to keep going even on the hardest days. Because strength doesn't always look loud, sometimes it's simply taking life one spoon at a time. Welcome to the Spoonful Show. I'm so happy that you're here with me today. What does it cost to live with a chronic illness? Not just physically, but financially. Because beyond the diagnosis and the symptoms, there's a whole other layer, one filled with bills, trade-offs, and tough decisions. Today, we're opening up that conversation. Joining me today is Tina again, my wonderful sister-in-law and fellow Spoonie, to talk about this important subject. Welcome back, Tina.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
It's a great day to be here and be here with you and talk about the financial burden of chronic illness. So I feel like that when you look at chronic illness, we don't talk enough about how much it costs financially and the burden that's on that. I imagine you went through that when you went through your cancer journey. I'm sure there was a
Yeah.
lot of unexpected cost with that.
Yes, absolutely. At the time too, I worked for a small company that did not have health benefits, didn't have disability. And unfortunately, it was a position where I would be in contact with kids a lot, like on a daily basis. So my oncologist was like, nope, that's not good for you with being immunocompromised. And so I was unpaid for about 9 months off while I was going through everything. So definitely a big financial burden there.
We think about the obvious things like, the doctor's visits and the MRI cost and the prescriptions, but there's just so much more that we're going to talk about today. Nobody tells you how expensive it is just to feel okay, not even to feel great, just to feel okay.
Yeah.
Insurance, I think, is one of those things that we'll touch on just for a few minutes because that can be frustrating, and the work that you have to do to get your insurance taken care of, to make sure everything's covered, and the prior approvals and things that need to go through. How have you navigated through insurance?
I was lucky. I have been very lucky compared to what I know the struggles with a lot of other people. I have gotten very little pushback with any type of testing or any kind of tests that are ordered or treatment things. It's interesting though. There's one thing that I have found out just recently is with those pre-authorizations, sometimes it's not even your insurance, it's the practice that you're seeing. Because when I had my port removed, there was an issue and I had to go to a vascular surgeon it's a whole long story, but I had to go to a vascular surgeon to have the remaining part that they weren't able to remove initially taken out. And they were insisting that I needed a referral. And I was like, my insurance does not require a referral. And then they were not just that, but they wouldn't take a referral from the original surgeon. It had to be from my primary care doctor, but I had not seen my primary care doctor in a number of years. In fact, I needed to reestablish myself because I was being so followed with my oncologist that I just wasn't seeing my primary care doctor. But in the meantime, they didn't take my insurance any longer. So it was just a big thing of finding at the last minute, rushing around trying to find a new primary care on my insurance that would actually give me the referral so I could see this. And it made no sense. So
Yeah.
it's so sometimes it's not even just the insurance that's given the pushback. It's practice that you're seeing.
And just, I think nowadays, I feel like it used to be, $500 deductible was fairly standard. And some of these deductibles now are absolutely insane to where you're paying $2,000 out of your pocket before insurance even covers anything. And that cost, I know January is always stressful. I don't want to do any appointments. I don't want to do any testing. And then, of course, something will come up that I'll need done. And it's that deductible that comes up. And then by June, I've met my maximum out of pocket. And so by then it's like, whatever you want to do to me, give me an MRI,
Right.
take a bone scan, whatever you want, it's all covered. But there's a lot of stress in trying to deal with, is this something that I need to have and how are we going to afford it financially?
Right, right. Because and especially when you're looking at the deductible and a lot of the more expensive tests is that you could hit that deductible with one simple procedure that they want to do with you, which is a lot out of pocket versus, like you said, with an entire family on your plan and you have a $2,000 deductible for the year, but it's, family wise, not
Yeah.
individually. So it's easier to do it if it's just, oh, you paid $200 this month and then next month savings needs to go. So, it all just depends on how it hits too.
And you mentioned having to step back from work for your cancer. So how did you deal with that loss of income to be able to take that time off that you really desperately needed?
Yeah, that was hard. That was during that time. I didn't have anything else to do since I wasn't able to go to work. So that's when I started crafting and, similar to how you got into years ago when you started making the wreaths, you did it because you needed something to do. And then suddenly I'm like, okay, how many cups do I need? So
Yeah.
started selling them that way. I think I did a little work from home because I did a lot of admin things, but not a whole lot of working from home either. So yeah, it was difficult.
And I know even for someone that doesn't have to take an extended amount of time away from work, there's still so many appointments and so many tests and things of using up all your PTO and hopefully not running out of PTO and being able to get that covered. But there's just so much more that you think about when you think about chronic illness and just how
Yeah,
much financially it cost.
a lot of things that may help you, like acupuncture, massage, those
Mm.
type of things, supplements. All of those things aren't necessarily covered by your insurance either. So
Right.
then you have to decide, okay, I know this, I've had this done once in the past and it really helped me, but I can't afford, when I was going through acupuncture with my back, it was like $90 every time I would go there. And I was seeing her once a week. Initially, I was seeing her twice a week just to get that under control. And that's not something that insurance was paying for. So,
Yeah.
sometimes the things that truly help you function are not financially feasible for some.
Yeah, that's a good point because there are things that I wanna do, and I don't do, massage for my muscles and things like that, but I don't wanna spend that money, the vitamins, and I know my doctor's given me a couple vitamins, and he's like, "Oh, they're on Amazon, and you can buy it here," and it's like $40 for a bottle that's gonna last, just a few weeks, and with prescription costs and everything, my prescriptions are crazy, and seems like every week I'm putting 40 to $60 down to pick up a prescription that I really need, and so it's like weighing, okay, well, I have to have my insulin, so I won't take this vitamin even though I know it'll help because I've got to pick and choose what I can what I can do and what I can't do, and that's a hard position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that with all the financial things being thrown our way, it takes a lot on your mental state. I worry a lot about money more so than Ed does, and he's the one that does the money, but I worry a lot as far as just the amount of money we're putting towards my health. And there were times back when we weren't doing well financially to where I would like my insulin pump, you would inject it and you had to rotate the site every 3 days. And it would come to where I would go longer just to kind of stretch out the cost because it was so expensive. And I would go sometimes a week with the same site and dealing with, painful, and luckily I never got a bad infection, but I would have redness and things like that just to prolong when I would need to make that next order and the stress of that and making sure that Well, I guess just the stress of feeling like a lot of this money is going toward me and
Hmm.
feeling kind of like a burden, as we've talked about many times before.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. It's hard to not feel that way when when you see here's $60. That could be a
Mhm.
bag of groceries, just the cost, prescription drug costs is just insane in this country.
I think so, and I don't know about you, but I even get anxiety when a bill comes in the mail or the insurance, explanation of benefits comes in and going, "Oh my gosh, what is this? What is this gonna look like? Can we afford this? What are we gonna do?" And
Right.
just it's just a lot of guilt of dealing with the amount of money that you have to take of the family budget, especially in a situation like me where I'm not able to work. So I'm not contributing as much financially. And so all of that is just can be really frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're one that tends to sacrifice or,
Mhm.
be the one to sacrifice for the family
Yeah.
and then but I mean, there's certain things, there's just simply no wiggle room for sacrificing.
Mm. Well, you never want to be in a position where you have to decide like what do I spend money on, groceries or getting this test done? And that's unfortunately where a lot of people lie right now is having to make those decisions, and you should never have to sacrifice your health. But if it comes at the cost of not paying your rent, that's a difficult decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's difficult to maneuver through and weigh the pros and cons of managing your budget.
And I think, looking at, even having to make lifestyle changes because of the financial costs, cutting back on vacations, cutting back on social life, going out to eat so that you can spend money on the things that you need. And we have been living at this house for I guess 3 years now, but we had to move from our house that was a two-story because it was like I'm having problems getting up and down stairs. I had a couple falls and it was not safe for me anymore. And so we left a house that we loved and I liked where we were at and I loved the house. So we had a lot more space and but that was a sacrifice that we had to make sure that I was safe and that I wasn't in a position where I was, using up so many spoons just going up and down the stairs, all day.
Yeah. 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 And I know that it took you a while to find the right house too. I remember that was quite the
Yeah.
search
We'd we'd
within
been
the
toying with
budget and
it.
what you liked. Yeah.
Yeah. We'd been toying with it for a while, and it was kinda me that was holding back and just like, I felt guilty because the boys had a lot more space upstairs. We just had there were so many good things about that house, and so it was after a fall that it was like, "Okay, well, we really need to make this decision now," and so there was a lot of guilt around that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of uh, opportunities with various assistants out there that a lot of people may not even be aware of. I know when I did take off work those months while I was going through chemo, nobody at my oncologist office told me that I would likely be eligible for um, Social Security disability,
Mm,
SSDI. And so that first round, I didn't apply for it because I didn't realize that my type of cancer was actually one that was, because at stage 4 was automatically approved, more or
mhm.
less, for it. And so all those months that I went unpaid, I could have been. So that's something, and if you're in another country, if you have, something similar to our disability, Social Security disability, to look into and don't overlook it, don't assume that you're not going to qualify, go through the process of applying and let them tell you no. for assuming that they're going to say no. I actually applied when I applied when in 2020 when it came back, and I took a step back from my job at that point while we were trying to decide how we were going to do for the treatment, and that was I ended up just needing radiation for that. But that was when I applied, and they actually back paid me from 2018 till back to 2018. Like I got a huge back payout on that.
Yeah.
So they will back pay you as well. And you don't even have to be completely off work if you have to cut back on your schedule.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get approved for, reduced workload. They'll help make up the difference on that.
Yeah. I see so many posts about people dealing with disability and not being able to get approved, and it's so difficult. But if you can manage that and work through that and get approved, that is something that's definitely helped us financially as well.
Some states will also have catastrophic grants.
Mm-hmm.
So check your state resources too, because I know one thing that I remember Dave talking about. My stepdaughter, she was born premature. She was 26. She was born at 26 weeks, and I think was almost a year old by the time she made it home from the hospital. So she spent almost her entire first year in the hospital, and they hit their maximum very quickly. They hit their maximum out of pocket, but their copays were still just astronomical. But the state of Maryland had some type of catastrophic grant for medical catastrophe type things, and they applied. And again, let them tell you no, because
Right.
his ex-wife, was like, just reading the guidelines. According to the guidelines, she's like, oh well, we're not eligible because we make too much money. And he said, well, we're just going to apply and let them tell us no. And guess what? They were actually approved for it. So just because those guidelines are there doesn't also automatically make you not eligible for things like that.
Right. A little bit of time to fill out the paperwork and do what you need is worth it if they can find some money to help. So I think that's great. I want to pause here for just a second. Do you ever think that if you just push through, you'll feel better? Yeah, me too. It doesn't work. So I made something for that. It's called Looks Fine, Feels Terrible, and it's a t-shirt available at spoonfulofstrength.etsy.com or click the link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the show. I think I even found this online somewhere where if you get a bill in the mail, you should always ask for an itemized bill, because something crazy like 60% of bills had errors on them, and which I thought was crazy because I've never asked for an itemized bill, and you just assume that what you're paying for is what you received. And the other thing that you can do is apply for financial assistance through the hospital. And I've done that with like my kids who are over 18 and they have to have something done and they don't have the money to take care of it. They have financial assistance available for families, and always go through that first. Sometimes you can get up to 100% of your bill taken care of. And then the other thing that Ed and I have done is just do the payment plans. And I think hospitals it gets so overwhelming when you see like $1,000 bill. But if you sign up for a payment plan, they allow you to do even like $10 a month. And that helps a lot because you're not ignoring that bill because you're stressed out because you can't afford it. And you're putting, even as much as $10 down, they accept. And then also when I have new procedures and new bills coming in, they just add that right to the financial payment plan. And that's been really helpful because that does take the stress off of it, because a lot of times if you see a bill, you ignore it or you get so stressed out because you can't pay it. So then you don't pay on it and you don't get those resources that are available for you. And it just brings on more stress. And that's been really important for me to be able to go, okay, well, yes, I'm adding $200 to this, but I'm able to pay. And I feel like hospitals now, as long as you pay something every month, they're never going to come back and say, well, you've been paying $10 a month for 6 months. We need you to pay more. It's
Right.
very, very easy to continue to pay what you can.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Also, there's various organizations that may have different grants that are specific for your chronic illness that you might
Hmm.
be dealing with. Look into that.
Yeah.
One thing that you had mentioned earlier was feeling like you have to choose over
Hmm.
the counter supplements. And what I never realized that my insurance would give me so much per month. Like you can go onto their store, so to speak, and order certain supplements and things. And they may not be the brand that you would use, but they may give you some insurance companies. I know my policy, I think it's like $40 or $60 a month that I could go on, and I never think of it until we're talking here. So I've never
Yeah.
actually done it, but I know that and I know my mother-in-law that was something that we were able to do through her insurance. Is you go in there and say, okay, I'm spending my $40 a month for over the counter supplies. So definitely check your insurance.
I've never heard of that. That's awesome. And you bring up a good point that, check with your insurance and see if there's programs available or even through employers.
Hmm.
I've seen with our insurance that they have like counseling, you can get counseling, so many sessions a month
Yeah.
or for a certain amount of time. And you mentioned the prescription, the prescription drug cards where you can get a little bit of help with your prescriptions and look at even, we're in a position now where because of my mobility, we have some things that we need to do that we can't afford. I was able to get a wheelchair last summer, but it's really, really, really nice wheelchair, but it's 420 pounds. And we have not figured out how to be able to get that out of the house and into a car. And so look at whether it be the MS Society or through lupus or whatever your chronic illness may be, and ask your doctor. A lot of times they have social workers available in the office that can help you with grants and help you get the things that you need either at a reduced price or covered with grants and things. So I think a big thing is use the resources you have. Go to your insurance, go to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist and see what's out there. And unfortunately it does take a lot of work, but if it can save you the stress, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes even your prescription, talking about prescriptions and like the good RX prescription drug cards and things like that. Sometimes if you have a medication that has a really large copay
Mhm.
on through your insurance, double check the good RX because it may be cheaper than even your copay for that insurance if
Yeah.
with the discount through them.
Yeah. And specialty medications. My MS drug is, I believe, 10,000 a month for my MS drug. And most specialty drugs have like a financial assistance. And so I don't pay a cent for my MS drug and I wouldn't be able to be on it if I had to pay it. And I know
Yeah.
with some infusions for MS that they can range up to $100,000 for an infusion, and so find those resources that you have, and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. They're there for a reason. And I know like there are some people that don't, that feel like, you know, asking for or taking advantage of those resources is taking away from others that need it more type thing. But I mean, they're there for a reason and they're there to help you. So as well. So,
Yeah,
you know, don't
yeah,
suffer because you're worried that it's going to take away from others as well, because then those resources won't get used.
yeah.
If people, if everybody thought that, then those would be useless resources because people would not be taking advantage of them, and then they go away if they're not being used.
I think the most important part of the conversation is just trying to let go of the stress because obviously stress isn't good for us. So letting go of the stress and realizing that you're worth it, and not feeling guilty that your family is spending money taking care of you to be healthy and happy and be, a loving part of the family. And I think that financial guilt is something I'm still working on, but it's so important to let that go, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Feeling guilty is not going to change the situation.
Mhm.
In fact, it's going to take away from truly living your life if you're sitting there feeling guilty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah, definitely. Everybody, each and every one of us is worth the support, financial, emotional.
Well, thank you, Tina, for being with me again today. You've got a couple more episodes coming up that we'll be talking a little bit more
Yeah.
about some things, and I appreciate you taking time out to do this with me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for having me on today. It was I
Awesome.
love being back.
Awesome. Living with chronic illness comes with so many costs, and not all of them show up on a bill. If today's conversation resonated with you, I hope it reminded you of one thing, that you're not carrying this alone. The stress, the decisions, and the weight of it all, it's real and it deserves to be acknowledged. Thank you for saving some spoons to be with me today. Until next time, take care. Just a quick reminder, everything shared here is based on personal experiences. Please consult your doctor for your own care.